Hi guys, my name is Lindsay and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. For those of you guys who are new here, I am a CPA working in New England. I do public accounting. And so today's video, I'm talking all about my college experience as an accounting student. I went to Bryant University and I graduated in 2018. And these are just tips and tricks that I kind of wish that I paid more attention to in college. And these are also things that I did in college that I'm so glad that I did. So it's kind of just a reflection of my academic experience there. And I say academic experience because college is so much more than just the academics. As we all know, there's so much growth that occurs during college that's not just academic. But today's video is all about accounting. So let's just dive into the video. So one general thing that I do want to say is I feel like there might be a few curious Bryant potential students at this video. And I do want to say that I loved my experience and I thought it was completely worth it. I actually went to Salve Regina for one semester in Newport, Rhode Island, and I didn't like it there. It just didn't feel like the right push for me, and I knew I wanted to study accounting. And when I transferred to Bryant, my first semester there, just comparing the two schools, it really gave me the ability to compare what other colleges can be like versus what Bryant University was like. It was such an innovative experience. I remember getting on campus and seeing all of these like sales competitions, these accounting presentation competitions, and it was just such an experience that pushed me out of my comfort zone that I'm so glad that I went to that school. And it's also the school that landed me to my first job, and it helped me kind of domino effect into where I am today. One thing that I did at Bryant University that I'm really glad that I did was I befriended my professors. And I know that this is something that doesn't come naturally to some people, but I want to say that in college, you're going to have some amazing professors and you will definitely have some not great professors. And my best advice is to deal with the not great professors, but when you find a great professor who you really connect with, go to their office hours and develop a relationship and talk about your goals after college. I'm glad that I did this because when I was at the Big Four and I found it to be a very bad fit for me, I wound up emailing that professor who I connected really well with, and he actually gave me advice on where to go, and he gave me smaller CPA firms that he would refer me to. And so that's just something to kind of extend as big sister advice, that professors are a resource for you and don't just use them to get the class credits to graduate. Really utilize them to get kind of real world advice. So the second thing about being an accounting student at college is that you really need to learn how to study. It's really important to be able to ace the tests and know how to do different depreciations and know like FIFO inventory method. But one thing that overall is just generally very important is learning how to study. And I actually had a moment of this during my junior year. So kind of a humble beginning story, but I think I became really attuned to my more intellectual self during this semester. I was in a financial reporting class, and my first exam I wound up getting a 71, and I was incredibly upset. I teared up because I realized that all of my friends did better, but I feel like I tried so hard to study. And then my second exam, I think I got like a 75, and I was able to make up for it during my homework assignments and everything else, but I was a horrible test taker. And then I wound up meeting with my professor, and I told her, I was like, you can see how I'm studying now for the final exam. I need to pass this class. I feel like I'm kind of on the edge of potentially having to retake it. And with the questions I was asking her, because I ask a lot of questions, she literally told me that she felt like I was going to have to retake it. And so I remember just crying to my mom on the phone because I thought I would have to retake the class, potentially lose my internship with the Big Four. And so then I literally locked myself in a room for like a week straight and studied for the final exam. And I really sat down and I thought, why am I doing horribly on all these exams and getting like C minuses? And at that point, I just realized, Lindsay, you're not studying right. Look back to the homework assignments, look at the patterns of how she's asking these questions in the exams. Should I be learning the exam book word for word, or should I be studying her homework assignments? And after that, I studied like a maniac. I had so much caffeine, and I wound up getting a 100 on the final exam. And so that was actually the best feeling. And I think that it really clicked to me how important it is to not just dive into your studies, but to actually sit back and think, what should I study today? How should I study? What is going to get me to my goal, which is passing the class or getting a great score in that exam? So just a really humble beginning story. I have not always been very successful in my academia, and that was just a really great learning experience for me. So number 3 for things that you should be aware of as an accounting student is that grades aren't everything. And I think that you hear this a lot in school, and I know in my senior year, I think two of my very close friends both had over a 3.8 GPA, which is amazing, and it really inspired me to get good grades. But I think that taking a step back, I wish that I focused less on my grades and more on getting out of my comfort zone. And I just realized that being book smart doesn't necessarily translate into being in an office and being successful. I think it's the ability to speak up, it's the ability to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, it's the ability to kind of gauge, should you send an email for the question or should you figure it out yourself? And I wish they paid more attention to that. And so an example of this is my senior year in the fall, I was very stressed, dealing with a lot of anxieties, and I took this out on my grades, and in like a good way. Like I focused really intensely on my classes, and I wound up getting like my best GPA for a semester that I ever had gotten. And that's kind of like how my anxiety manifests, is I focus very intensely on something that I can control, which is my grades. But the thing is, one thing that was kind of on the poor receiving end of that was I was in a student club. This was a student government, for example. And I've mentioned this a few times, but I was just so nervous to ever say anything, and I think it was like a very type A environment. I never pushed myself out of my comfort zone and spoke up about what I think we should be doing with our school budget, and I immensely regret that. And it did wind up kind of translating into my career after college, because I realized I'm still nervous to speak up in these situations. I'm still nervous to give my input for stuff. So I think in college, grades are very important, but I think develop that self-confidence to speak up, because it is so much more important than you really realize in the office, in the real world after you graduate. So I think the final message to that is that grades are very important, and you do have to have a certain GPA to get certain internships that will end up translating to job offers. But I also think really just develop a sense of your professional self and learn to speak up. And one thing that I thought during college the entire time was like, yes, I'm nervous in college, but that's because there are like all these pressures and everybody's like my age, which is kind of stressful. But it did wind up kind of feeling like the same thing as soon as I graduated. I felt this hesitation when I wanted to speak up or when I wanted to let something be known. And I just think it's really important to develop that voice. So the next thing that I do want to talk about is that yes, extracurriculars do really matter in college, especially as an accounting major. And this kind of goes back to like the student government, how I never spoke during it, how I was really nervous. And I think that when I got about a year into my career, I think that's when I really started to realize, oh, that's why they say you need extracurriculars on your resume, because I would be at the Big Four and I'd see people who aced all of their exams and were incredibly driven and smart. However, they weren't very happy there and they wound up leaving. And I was just making this connection, like how come GPA and measurable things like passing exams isn't translating necessarily into success at the Big Four? And that's when I realized that there's so much more to it. It's the ability to kind of like get your foot out there, to put yourself out there, and to just have that confidence to speak up. And so that's when they say extracurriculars are very important, which I definitely agree with. I think it just really rounds you very well in college, and not only does it look good, but it will do very profound things to your ability to put yourself in different situations. So an example of this is myself. I focused a lot on my GPA, and things did work out very well for me. I'm very happy with where I am now. But one thing that I realized was even when after I graduated, there were instances like group situations to speak up, and even like during our meetings at the Big Four, I got very nervous to speak up. And even like the group meetings when we'd all be on a different floor, we'd all like get into the elevator room, and it stressed me out, like the masses of people, all of us together waiting, and like the small talk. And I kind of realized that if I'd exposed myself more to that during college, as opposed to just hashing it out in my GPA, I feel like I would have been a little bit more comfortable. So this kind of transitions, I suppose, into my last bit. And this is when you're in college, you think a lot about where you want to work. And I think a lot of people are going to give you advice to think that, oh, if you like corporate tax class, you should go into public accounting. Or if you like the individual tax class, you should really go into a small CPA firm. Or if you really like managerial accounting, go into private. However, I kind of went by that guideline. I loved my corporate tax class and I went into Big Four accounting. But one thing I wish I did was I wish I reflected a little bit more on my learning style and where I thrived the most, and then projected that into where I'd actually be happy working. So an example of this is that I'm a quiet worker. I really liked individual projects. I liked classes where you kind of like all sat in rows and there wasn't a ton of collaboration, just because I found it to be the best way where I could really use that solitude to focus and dive into my work. So like, yes, I loved corporate tax class, but I also loved quiet work environments, and I loved being able to focus on my own work, and I loved being able to kind of make my own regimen. And so then I wound up being really surprised when I went to the Big Four, which was all corporate tax, but surrounded by a lot of group projects, a lot of collaboration, like a lot of loud sounds, because it was like a very loud environment. I was somehow shocked that it wasn't the right fit for me. So one way to figure out kind of your learning style and where you should work afterwards is just think, where are you the happiest and where are you the least happy? So to give you guys an example for myself, I felt the happiest in my academic career when I was alone in the library studying and like really just diving into the work. I felt the happiest when I had strong relationships and mentors with my professors. And one thing I did was, if the library was too loud, I would literally pack up all my stuff and leave and go to a place that was more quiet. And some people aren't like that. And another thing to ask yourself is, are you ready to graduate college? Do you want to be surrounded by millennials for another few years? And it was weird because I myself was so excited to graduate college and work with older people, like just like different variations of maturity and wisdom. And so somehow I was so excited still to like work somewhere with a ton of post-college grads. So it's just one thing to reflect on and be honest with yourself. It's not all about just, oh, corporate tax versus maybe private, managerial accounting. It's so much less about the content, but so much more about culture. And that could be just a completely other different video. But by culture, I mean low noise levels, collaboration, office politics, anxiety, just different stuff to pay attention with yourself and what you deal the best with. I said I was very happy in the library, in quieter classrooms, very structured programs. But one thing that I wasn't really thriving in was the student government. I was very anxious during my time there. I never spoke up. It was a very type A situation. There were politics to deal with there that like I saw, but I didn't really engage in it because I was very quiet. And kind of like this, like not a small group setting where you spoke about your thoughts, but you had to like stand up and be like, Senator Carmen, like this is what I think we should do with our budget. If I felt stressed out in kind of like a very type A environment, a very like group environment, why did I think I would thrive in an extremely type A environment of the Big Four? And I see some people just thriving in the Big Four who are incredibly smart, incredibly driven, and who have that skill to navigate those environments. And oh my gosh, am I jealous? But I'm also really happy with the skills that I have myself, because I see value in both types of workers. People who like to work in solitude have just as much to offer as people who like to work in louder group settings. And likewise for loud workers, quiet workers, people who are like book smart versus street smart. So just the whole host of things. And if you want me to talk more about how to find a good fit in a company, then I definitely will. I just want you guys to be happy where you are, and I don't want you to drink the Kool-Aid for really what's going to make you happy. And I know I had a lot of professors who only ever pushed Big Four, but I can guarantee you that if you're in an environment where you're happy, you feel comfortable, and you feel like you're kind of intellectually thriving, then you'll be so much more successful than if you were like depressed at the Big Four or something. And so of course this isn't to hate on the Big Four, because I see so many intelligent people and so many driven people there, but I do want to just give the perspective that success can be found in so many different aspects. And just be aware that some professors may not push you to look for private, or may not push you to look for a small CPA firm. So yeah, that was my little ramble that I want you guys to pay attention to and to just be honest with yourself about. But yeah, so let's just close off that video. And I do want to say thank you guys for watching. I always reflect on my time at Bryant and just how blessed I am that I was able to attend that school and everything that I learned from it, and it really just made me who I am today. But of course, there are things I wish I paid more attention to, and you know, it's just a part of, you know, making it through life and reflecting on things that you're happy with and things that you can do better with next time. So yeah, thanks guys for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and have a fantastic day, and leave any questions down below or video suggestions. Bye.